Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos. And this is a show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. Oh man, it's been interesting since I recorded the last show. Tough times at work. Going through that a couple of different things. Just a bunch of different things, personnel wise, and just trying to get some things, straightened out and performance up to par on other things. I do find working in the grand oxymoron of have great customer service but be super fast about it. I have seen that as the universal theme between all the jobs I've had, and I sort of find it counterintuitive, just from a function standpoint. If I'm giving great customer service, then I need to spend time with the customer and inquire. So anyway. There's that, but I think that just comes down to I'm more of a people person, if you couldn't tell by the nature of the show. So there you go. All right, let's get into today's show. Today's show is going to be rather interesting. We're going to look at being process oriented versus results oriented, and the problems that come up when we become results oriented or results driven versus being process driven. And then we're going to go and try to tap a little bit more out of Age of Ultron. I know I've looked at a lot of Nick Fury lately. I really haven't put out a lot of content about Age of Ultron. So we're going to look at that just for a couple of reasons. The first main reason is that it's a major set, a very large set that's giving us an insane amount of figures, but just due to how it's stretched out in waves, we really hadn't had time to look at it. So it's not going to be like hoop-de-doo set review type situation, because I think I've already technically done that. What this is going to be just more focused on is what we can sort of draw out of the of the set, that if that makes sense. Okay. All right. So let's talk about it being process oriented versus being results oriented, and the complications that it can cause. If you're process oriented, what you end up doing is you look at a lot of the whys. Why am I doing this? And more importantly, you're looking at better ways of doing what you're doing. You're not just like, I gotta do this because Dark Logos told me. You're like, okay, well, what's the spirit of what Dark Logos is telling me? What is he trying to communicate here? Is he just trying to is he trying to put me in a certain situation where I can see oh, these are problems, or is he trying to make me understand how people think at X or Y or Z level? Okay, so processes are interchangeable. The main thing about processes is that when they fail, you can always apply another process. Okay, by applying another process, it allows for great amounts of flexibility. It allows you to go through and sort of see some depth of life a little bit more. Now, please understand, when I say applying processes, it's not necessarily meaning that all of a sudden you end up in a relativistic reality, and that's not what I'm shooting for. What I'm more along the line of looking at is you're able to extrapolate data from applying multiple processes. Okay. Now, a lot of folks will say, well, Dark Logos, isn't that just the process of thinking? and yes and no. While processes does require thought and application, just idle thinking won't have you go through and create and recognize needed processes that you need to apply. Okay, that's a huge deal. A lot of people think that just by going through the motions, success will inevitably come. In heroclix, or even more so, some of the people that denounce hard work in from the casual camp, not all casuals, will say like, well, you're putting too much mental energy behind heroclix. You're taking it too seriously. And I would already say, if you're on a message board talking about little plastic men and how they interact with the game with superheroes, I'm sorry, you're already beyond the stage of taking things too seriously. I just look at it. Whatever you have dedicated time and thought and action to, you've already had a level of seriousness to it, or else you would be doing something else. The option of, well, there would be nothing else for me to do is really a lie. There's tons of things that you can do. Like, even while I'm recording this podcast, I'm playing this little puzzle match 3 game on my phone. Does that mean I'm phoning it in? No. Is there other things I could be doing with my time? Yes. But I'm recording this podcast and playing this match 3 puzzle game, which is sort of like Pokemon meets a match 3 puzzle game. Now, you might be saying, well, okay, then, Dark Logos, since you're pointing all of this out, give us a display about how, just because I think doesn't mean that I'm going through processes. Well, here we go. You're in the library. You realize you need to find a book, okay? And you're not quite sure how to find the book. So you proceed to just ask a bunch of random people where to find a book. And inevitably, you find the book. Now, you might say, like, well, I asked questions. No, you just sort of did some basic thinking. You're like, well, I need to find something. Let me just ask whoever. You didn't say, like, well, let me go and consult the index. It's computerized now, but I remember when it was card based. Heck, it was like that when I was in college. Okay. Or you can be like, let me talk to the librarian, someone specifically who would know the information. So you're not just, waving your hands around, willing to accept any outcome, but you have a specific way to get to that outcome that's thought out. Now, the main thing about process orientation is that process orientation allows you to sort of see the gears turning in the machine. Okay, that's a big part. Now, let's look at the impact of being result driven and have result orientation. The main thing that I see a lot of times, definitely when I get like the first email from people. The first email I get from a lot of people is, Dark Logos, I want to win this tournament. Help me beat these guys. They are the devil and they are evil incarnate. I must win this prize to complete my Ultra theme team. These are the figures that I have. Insert 5,000 pieces. Please tell me how I can win, Dark Logos. Thank you very much and have a great day. I love your podcast. Now, I am exaggerating if you couldn't tell, but it's a lot of the first time emails from various people is like that. Now, many times people are focused on a result. The result is, hey, I want this thing. I don't care how I get there. What do I have to do? What part of my body or what part of my soul I must sell? I must get to this location. And so what ends up happening is that you create a situation in which you may or may not arrive. And if you do arrive, you could not return trip yourself. So let me repeat that. You may or may not arrive. And if you wish to do a return trip to that location, you could not do it yourself. Okay. So that's a huge deal. Like, most people don't realize that when they start dealing with some of the more observational elements that come along with developing themselves in the game, or even in life. They're just like, I need to get here. And I'm still a little bit, I'm a lot guilty of doing it. I'm like, I need to get here. I want to be this. Okay, so what's the process of being a good version of that? Most people don't think about that. They're just like, I need to get here. I just need to be here. Okay, so you finally get wherever there is. Can you help someone else get to that location? Most likely not. The other thing is that because we idolize the end result, once we obtain that thing, or arrive at that location, and it fails to measure up to all our expectations, okay, I'm just being honest, things don't really satisfy for any prolonged period of times. You have to look at all objects like food. At some period of time, they will satiate you, and then you will hunger again. And that thing will not be substantial. Okay, and that's how you have to look at it. Heroclix is a prime example. If people could be content with heroclix, the game would go out of business. Because once you got one version of Superman, that's the only version of Superman you need. Once you got the one version of Ghost Rider, that's the only version of Ghost Rider you need. Once you got that, your X-Men, 1990s lineup done, do you really need another Gambit? I've got like 5. Okay, why do I need another Gambit? But I'm going to get another Gambit when it comes out if it proves to be more broken than the last Gambit. And the last Gambit was pretty broken for its time. You sort of see how it goes. If you're like, I need to win, and win now, and then that's it, and then you win, and then it's like, but I like the feeling of winning, I want to win again. And you're like, but how did I win? I don't really know. There's that problem of it. And then also sort of the process of enjoying becoming. As philosophical as that sounds, a lot of times people don't enjoy the process of becoming a better player, becoming a better husband, becoming a better wife, becoming a better teacher, becoming a better student. Most of the time, because we are a status-driven species, mammals are status-driven species. There are other species that are status-driven as well that aren't mammals. But mammals in particular, we're status-driven hierarchical species. And because of that, we are more concerned about our social impact, how others view us, how others relate to us, how others identify us. And so we tend to see the object or the result as the goal, but the real actual goal or the real need is facing, a social insecurity that we have. Many times, and I'm going to be honest about this, when I coach somebody about getting better, and the topic matter is I need to beat so and so, or I need to win this, it usually comes down to the fact that in that social environment of that gaming group, whoever is on top has made made that individual, or the people on top have made that individual feel socially less than. And so the motivation is, let me talk to the guru in the internet sky, so that I might be able to, reclaim status or gain status, so that I don't have to deal with the emotional distress or the emotional or the internal discourse that I'm having with myself. And that happens a lot. And I can say that for myself. Like when I was in Tulsa in grad school, there was a period of time I was getting better, and I was helping the guys in my venue get better. And there was this one dude, he was just an a-hole. He was Captain A to the hole. and he was rude, he was annoying, he was frustrating, and he was never fun to play against. Even when you beat him, it was just like, finally, I no longer have to sully my hands or time with this guy. Like that's how you felt. And so when I became a judge for a period of time, I was like, yeah, I don't have to deal with them to play him. And then I had to deal with all the other crappy things that he did on the side as the judge. And then I started to realize a lot of my hatred for him came out the fact that I just wanted to beat him, that he had beat me, and he had the ability to make my position in the group seem questionable. Okay? Men in particular, women will say men have soft egos. Really not. Women and men have about the same type of egos. It's just that men in particular, we key off of our role in the pack. That's really it. No matter if you want to consider yourself a loner or hyper, alpha male or whatever, most of masculine identity and friendship is based around a common activity, which also comes around roles that the various men play in that interaction. And so for most of us, when we're dealing with, when we hate our venue, it's the fact that our identity in the pack is gone, or it's in flux, and there is no security in that identity. That's why a lot of times people will cling to, past identities where success happened. I know I did that for speech and debate, and I can start to see that while I had a lot of great gains from doing that, there's also a lot of things that hindered me from developing other aspects of my life, like journalism. Like I could have been a way better journalist if I just had stopped doing speech and debate stuff. But also in that time, I, gained certain levels of insight to coach. So there's trade-offs. So result orientation really focuses down many times on our insecurities about who we are or where we're going. It has very little to do with the actual position or thing. Even if you said, I want to go and win Gen Con. Do you want to win? Why do you want to win Gen Con? So that I can design that product. And then I can be, a world champion. Well, trust me, from knowing multiple world champions, it is a crappy gig, okay, just in all honesty, because you're going to get crap from every casual that thinks they have an axe to grind on the realms, and anybody that gets beat by your team that you won Origins with, they're going to cry and call foul and how crappy you are for building that team and that you lack humanity. When you go to a tournament, everybody's going to, measure themselves if they beat you, and when they see you, they're going to, try to puff up their chest and use every little trick in the book to try to beat you, just to say that they're better than the world champion. So you might say, well, Dark Logos, you're shining a really dark light on this. Why do you want to be the world champion, or why do you still insist on, pursuing to be the best? Because go back to being process oriented versus results oriented. While I understand my process is leading me toward the result, the idea of being a better player is way better. It's way better than getting some social recognition. And trust me, I do love me some social recognition. I really do like it. Okay, I'm not going to front. But at the same time, I can say, all right. I can live without social recognition if I'm becoming better. Because in my process of becoming better, I am then able to say, okay, this is who I am now. That was who I was. This is how much I've gained. And in that gaining, I'm able to start saying like, oh, wow, I didn't quite think that I could reach here, or wow, I got here. That's awesome. That means that my next step is here. Process orientation to an extent allows you to start looking at what builds up yourself, what builds up your methodology versus what stimulus you get from your result. Uh, it's how I affect my environment versus being affected by my environment. That's a better way of putting it. Now you might say, well, Dark Logos, are you not coaching anymore? No, I'm coaching. You're going to say, Dark Logos, are you not striving for any major championships? No, I still want to, win World Cup. That would be great. But at the same time, I'm not going to say, wow, my skill as a heroclix player is going to live and die by my results this time around at World Cup. I'm not going to say that at all. What I can say is like, wow, this time at World Cup, I'm going to be able to test my skill in a way I haven't before against players of high caliber. Okay, so some people would then be like, well, I just want to be the best guy at my venue. Okay, well, let's first see, what does that look like? What's the process of getting there? Once you arrive at being the best person at your venue, what then? What's next? I've lived there. Trust me, it's not that fun. I've done that. Done that for many years. It's not that fun. After a while, you're like, I play clicks. Why am I buying this stuff? There's no challenge anymore. So there's that. So as time progresses, you can see then being process oriented allows us for overall better growth in life versus just being results oriented, where we just get our new shiny and then we move on. I could tell you just firsthand how many times, so many times, I've said to myself, yeah, I really, really am going to be satisfied once I've gotten X. And then when I got X, I was like, oh, this is nothing like I wanted. This didn't satisfy me on a prolonged level. Whereas looking at the processes, I'm able to be present in the moment. I'm able to, go in and break things down and then see like, wow, okay, I've grown and I've made these strides. I may not be in a situation where I can immediately be a severe threat or a challenge to X, Y, and Z players, but that's fine. I still have time. Okay, so that's how I look at it. Okay, so let's. I hope you like that. I tell you, like, I always take stuff from other things that I listen to from various perspective and worldviews, and I was listening to a lecture by a guy, and he was talking about being present and the impacts of being present and what that does for you as a person. So I was listening to that and I was like, yeah, this is great. So it definitely feeds into the average heroclixer mindset that people are more results oriented than process oriented. All right, so let's now go ahead, sort of take a detour over towards your units section. We're going to look at Age of Ultron. Now, I'm going to say this. It's one of those Tale of Two Cities. Is the best of times, is the worst of times. And the main reason I'm saying that is that the set in and of itself gives you a lot of new options. It gives you a lot of, oh, hey, guess what, guy? You want to do that cool robot theme team that you've always wanted to do for the last few years? Here's like all the ammunition you could literally ever need to build that. and that's great. At the other end of the at the other end of the spectrum, there's a lot of just overcosted stuff, like super overcosted stuff, and it doesn't have much use outside of sealed. And but at the same time, we are looking at this new, I call it the big reality. I remember a long time ago I used to use big as like giant figures and colossals and whatever else. Now I'm starting to expand that concept and just sort of say, like, when we're talking about big, we're also talking about characters that have chunky price points, and that's what we're seeing. I wouldn't say, wow, these guys are all OMAs, because they're really not. Most of the big figures that we're going to, or most of the figures we're going to look at, or even the big figures, they serve more utility than anything else. They're not like, oh my gosh, I'm super dumb broke strong. It's really more along the lines of, okay, they come in and they're relatively hard to kill in comparison to your average piece, and they give out a reasonable amount of damage. So there's that. Also, just, something to be aware of is that the control level and shenanigans level in the set, I wouldn't say it's the highest it's ever been, because that's not true. But it is interesting to see some of the things that you can do. All right. With that being said, let's start off, and we're going to look at Iron Fist. And you might say, "What? Like off the bat, Iron Fist? Really? This is your first guy?" Yeah, because I think he's going to be slept on for a long time. And I think he's worth us looking at from a academic standpoint. And the main reason is not just the ID card. The ID card is a big chunk of it, but for what he brings for 100 points. For 100 points, he brings in 7 clicks. He also has a trait which says when Iron Fist is targeted with a close combat attack, modify his defense value by +1. So he has a little bit additional survivability for close combat attacks. He also has Precision Strike and Close Combat Expert, which work together. If you do decide to give him a sniper rifle, this Precision Strike is very useful. He also has special movement power, which says loot goes through, I go over. Iron Fist can use Leap Climb. When Iron Fist resolves a move action and have moved 4 squares or less, he can make a close combat attack as a free action. So pretty much he's able to have a 4 square pounce. Now, a lot of people that didn't play back during feats wouldn't understand how powerful that can be, but it can be stupid strong. Now, it definitely, if you combine him with Proselyte, and you're like, yeah, I have super strength now, I pick up an ultra heavy and I hit you for 5. That is dumb. And you're talking about I wouldn't say an extreme level of mobility, but you are talking about a above average level of mobility at 10 movement that he has, but still you're limited down to 4 squares. Okay. The next thing that I look at as a huge deal that comes from just overall looking at Iron Fist is that having wildcard team ability allows him to just fit in on a bunch of things that he shouldn't have. Add on a bunch of team abilities he shouldn't normally have to make him do dumber things. And you can look at his keywords. He has a really good plethora of keywords, which makes him highly flexible. And then you can't forget about the Heroes for Hire team ability, ATA, and then Avengers has a butt ton of ATAs. So, you play it how you see it. And I mean, I personally see this as a really, 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 really huge opportunity for you to surprise your opponent. At 7 clicks, are there, do you wish he hit that magical 8 like Coriander? Yeah, you do. Like, I'm not going to front. Like, I really do. But can I respect where this is going? Yes, I can respect where this is going. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move on down the line, as my grandmother used to say. Next up is Mockingbird. Now, you might say, well, why Mockingbird? Well, Mockingbird serves a couple of different functions. Function number one, she can pilot the Quinjet and give it both the Avengers team ability and the Shield team ability, and get an extra target, as well as give it sidestep. So that right there is a pretty good deal. Also, she has pole vault, and as her trait, which is improved movement, ignores elevated terrain, ignores hindering terrain. So she has the ability to just get in there and tie up just about anybody. She can get to a lot of figures. So that's a really good deal. Now, most people won't think about her as a tie-up piece. They're like, 50 points, Dark Logos, that's really expensive. And yes, it is relatively expensive. But she has actually the potential to survive an attack with super senses. Then you have on the top of my class, Mockingbird can use stealth. When she's adjacent to a friendly character with a higher point value, she can use sidestep and willpower. So this just adds to her offensive capability. Now, she does have to be next to a character, a friendly character with a higher point value. That is another limitation. But here's the other, like, sort of cool thing when you think about it. That you're able to carry like 2 or 3 of her with gates, and now they all have stealth and willpower. I'm just saying, a lot of people just sleep on old tech, and it's like you can come back and play that again. The empower, yeah, that can get useful, because you have to look at her as a tie-up utilitarian support piece. She's there for your flying charger to carry into battle and be like, boom, 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 plus 1 more damage to my attack. Plus I have this other meat shield to sort of intercept things that are coming. And I placed her on this 1 square of hindering terrain. So now she's stealth. So a lot of folks, again, won't think like that, or even more so say like, oh, wow, I carry Mockingbird. Then I drop the net, placing smoke cloud using my lantern. Now I've protected her, and I've also to an extent given some protection to my friendly ally as well, by giving them +1 defense and possibly being just a stealth wall against my opponent. A lot of folks don't think like that. All right, let's move on. Let's look at a figure that was really good in sealed, but really, she has a place, but it's going to get real strange, and that's Alexis. Alexis has a very short range, but she has probability control and precision strike and 3 damage, and energy shield deflection and phasing. The main thing is that she is a taxi probber. You want to give her a sniper rifle. That's pretty much a given. But the nice thing about her, I feel, is that if she gets hit by a standard 3 damage attack, she's not dead. She's giving you an 18 defend, and she's still helpful to the team. Really, if she takes more than 2 damage, she's sidestep carrying, which, as a person who's used it is way stronger than a lot of people think. It is way stronger than a lot of people think, just to sidestep carry, because of the leapfrogging that you can do. It's just dumb. But again, like, it's a figure worth looking at, just to get yourself sort of like in a training mode. Is it the most efficient probber taxi that you can get? No, she's definitely not. But I do think that when you're playing those games at your local venue and you're looking to get better, Definitely one of those figures that you can pick up and force yourself to be a little bit more aware about your placement, be a little bit more aware about how you're using probability control and for what, and how you're attacking with her. All right, so let's look at a standard Ultron drone, number 14, not number 15, number 14. And, they, of course, all start with, sidestep and invulnerability. But once you move to click 2, you get Psychic Blast and Enhancement. Now, I really like this. Definitely have seen a bunch of Ultron Swarm teams. They have their uses. But what this does, it allows you to sort of get on that click 2 and then say, like, all right, now these guys are a 10 attack, 4 damage. What are you going to do? And most people think like, well, I'm just going to hit it for 1 damage and then it's done. And it's like, nope, I'm still alive. And that throws people. You also have the trait charging to power level 5. At the beginning of your turn, you may place a level token on this card, maximum 5. Give Ultron Drone a power action and remove all level tokens from this card and make a ranged combat attack. Ultron Drone's damage value becomes equal to the number of tokens removed and is locked. Now, as a person who's played this that all of a sudden did a 5 damage Psychic Blast, it's sort of hilarious. At the same time, as a person who's played this who attempted a 5 damage Psychic Blast and it missed, it also is a little bit depressing because you're waiting for this one key moment to unleash this Kamehameha wave and it just doesn't happen, or it does happen. It can be depressing, but it's not bad. All right. Next up is Iron Man. Now, Iron Man is more of an ID card tech for a couple of reasons. First off, he has charge and super strength and outwit, which means that if you're able to pick up that nifty heavy object, you potentially can hit somebody for 5, and that's not bad. Let's be honest. 5 damage is never bad. At the other end, just being able to pop somebody in to outwit is huge. You also have the trait of the original Invincible Iron Man. If the first ranged combat attack made during an opponent's turn doesn't target Iron Man, modify the attacker's attack and damage value by -1. Now, this is a big deal, definitely when you're trying to save a figure that's almost dead. If you pop this character out as an ID character, if your opponent, is trying to like kill so-and-so figure, let's just say Nick Fury, you're like, bloop, popped out Iron Man. Okay, so they're going to just say, most people have like bull eyes. Like they see red and then they charge straight for their character. A lot of times people don't really continue to assess the battlefield. So because of that, they charge for Nick. They try to shoot Nick Fury, and then you're like, -1 attack, -1 damage. You've already declared, I'm not letting you out of this. Like, you might say, but Dark Logos, that's the douchebaggy move. No, that's because your opponent just doesn't pay attention. That's on them. I do have a story that I wish I could tell that was told to me by Daniel Joines, but I can't tell him about a person he played. But that happens a lot where people don't pay attention, and this allows you to have a little sneak move on people. And again, folks don't pay attention. They just don't pay attention. I like the Ultron spider drones. That's all I need to say. I just think they're cool. Now let's talk about Thor. Thor coming in at 200 points or 100 points is by far one of the most talked about figures from the set. And it's interesting considering that he has a decent range and energy explosion that's penetrating, yet he doesn't have running shot or hypersonic speed, and everybody loves him. And I think one of the main reasons is this Thor comes in, provides enhancement as a support, range piece, and then on top of everything else says, hey, I summon free women. And a lot of people might not think of it like that, but it's just like, you play multiple Thors, you summon multiple Jane Fosters. The plural of woman is woman. And so the fact that you get multiple Jane Foster Pogs that just pop out of nowhere, no restrictions. They don't even have to be in your starting area. You know, people don't think about that fully. And then the idea of, here's the ID card. I pop the ID card. Boop. Now I have this medic, and there you go. You know, so there's a lot there. The other thing that sort of stands out about this Thor is that he just craps on Silver Centurion's day so hard in multiple ways. Like, because it's penetrating energy explosion and not psychic blast, it just gets around his dumbness. But with Nick Fury in the meta, Silver Centurion is pretty much dead. He's pretty much dead. Because he just says, like, nope, you don't have that impervious anymore. Now die. There's a lot of things that are just sort of dead, unfortunately, because of Nick Fury. That's sad. I really, c'est la vie. Anyway, let's sort of move on. The 100-point Thor is also interesting because even though you summon it in on click 4, and it has 6 clicks of life, it's still relatively hard to kill. Like, you have to invest a good amount of effort to kill it, which still makes it a safe summon at 100 points, and even a safe play at 100 points. Is it, again, your best play at 100 points? No, there's other characters that you can do. But, again, crapping out the free medic, that's game-changing. It just really is. Like, no matter what someone says, like, but Jane Foster can die. Yeah, your opponent scores 0 points. 0. So, yeah. Alright, so let's move on. Everyone talks about She-Hulk. And for good reason. Just overall, she's great. And, you know, for a lower point value at 75 points, she's very accessible for ID cards. Now, the other thing I will say is, if you want to play the whole I get a second chance to reroll for map roll thing, I already got to tell you, you've already sort of lost. Because if you are that dependent on map and you don't have a really strong theme team, I'm sorry. Like, all you've done is just reset a 50-50. Or if your opponent has a theme team, you've just reset the odds. So it's still not necessarily in your favor. And I know a lot of people don't like that, but you have to play up everything else that you have in your arsenal, so to speak, so that, you know, when you're looking at She-Hulk, you're like, okay, my main goal is to have her as a third string attacker, you know, protected by barrier, blocked off by X, Y, or Z effect. And if she gets me mapped, fine. If not, cool. My team still does this. Like, a lot of people don't think like that. Alright. Next up. Oh, I clicked the wrong one. I was about to say Machine Man. I'm like, nope, that's not right. War Machine. Now you're going to say, Dark Logos, is this your Black History Month bias coming in? You're darn skippy. You're darn skippy. But there's a couple other elements that I do think that people will start looking at him for. Number one, ID cards. The more you have these big 10 poles in the meta and they're able to summon other insanely high people, and the fact that he can have Precision Strike, Psychic Blast, or Pulse Wave when he's running shots, that's a huge deal. Being 8 clicks deep and having damage reduction makes him really hard to kill. And he's perfect for summoning in. So yeah, I definitely would say that he's a solid piece. Also, you have the improved laser targeting when War Machine targets more than one opposing character with a ranged combat attack. He can use probability control for that attack. that in and of itself is worth money. It's like, oh, if I target multiple people, I get prob, and I have precision strike, impulse wave. Yeah, like so good right now. Let's keep on moving on. Let's talk about Power Man. And the main reason we're going to talk about Power Man is he's the little engine that could wreck your day if you're not paying attention. You have gathering strength from spirits. When another character is KO'd, it says another, it doesn't even say your own. Place a spirit token on this card. Power Man modifies all his combat values except damage by +1 for each spirit token on this card. When Power Man clears action tokens, remove all spirit tokens from this card. And that's fine. Did you have a turn in which all your little ants died? Power Man knows, and he was there. Did your opponent crit miss and die? Power Man knows, and he was there. Power Man, lighten up fools since midsummer. Yeah, this is dumb. The fact that you could potentially be a 20D with a 13 attack and charging in with exploit weakness, that's pretty dumb. It's a lot of folks don't understand that he's dumber with close combat expert, because you can't modify his damage with his little cheese stuff. So he now is like a 13 attack and 4 damage with close combat expert. Now, I will say this. He hates Nighthawk Prime with a passion. So hard. But that's one of your few counters. But for 68 points for something that chills in the back, I'll just say it like this. If you're running Pog guys or fodder guys, you want 2 of these. Just play 2. I don't care about your theme team. Just play 2 and just have them chill in the back or in within striking distance. And then once a couple of guys die and you're a 12 attack, it's stupid. And then this is the other thing too. People will look at the dial and be like, well, I'm going to attack Power Man, and they've KO'd something else that turn, and they're like, I have a 10, I roll a 7, I hit. And you're like, no, you don't hit. And it's like, why don't I hit? You killed so-and-so, so I got a chi token, so I'm at 18. You have no reason to announce that you got chi tokens. Like, that's the thing people forget. Like, it just tells you to put the token on the card. Your opponent has to ask, like, how many chi tokens are on Power Man's card? You know, they don't do that. So yeah, that's on them. You might be, some of you are like, Dark Logos, I didn't know that you were this evil. I'm not, but really, there's a lot of stuff that just people let slide. That you can't. You really can't. Now, you know, if it's like, oh, I'm playing for the 5th LE that I already have, then yeah, you don't need to call stuff like that. But if it's like, oh, hey, this is real important, you know, then yeah, you need to call that. All right, let's move on. I'm going to bring up this character just for the pure fact that I see it as a alternative to Nova, and that's Spectrum. As much as they jacked her up, for those who are familiar with Dave Chappelle, there was a skit in which Wayne Brady was on the show, and because there are kids that listen to this show, kids that are minors, I am flashbacking to the moment where Dave Chappelle thought Wayne Brady was somebody else and talked about choking dogs. And that's what I really, really, really want to do to whoever designed this. Does Dark Logos have to choke a dog? Because Spectrum is way better than this as a character in the book. And even when she first got her costume, she's still way better than this. And the main thing that it sort of comes back to her uses is just the fact that she has Pulse Wave and 3 damage versus everyone using Nova and who has Pulse Wave and 9 attack and 2 damage, but potentially can Pulse Wave for 2 damage. I rather have the potential to just be like, screw it, I got 3 damage and I can shoot you. Also, the PD team ability is also really good too. Let's talk about Jocasta not as a possessor, but as an actual figure. And if we start looking at Jocasta as an actual figure, there's a couple of things that we can pick up. And the first thing that we can pick up from looking at Jocasta is this. If you're looking to build something a little bit more technical, and if you're looking to build something a little bit more finessey, and you're wanting to train with being better in a close range situation, I would tell you Jocasta is another one of those training pieces. Okay, that's the first main thing. The other thing that I would tell you is keeping in mind of your level of finesse needed, you have to sort of tread carefully. And her abilities are really standard. She only really has one special power, and that one special power really is not that good. Just for the pure fact that she is possessing unit. But even still, it's not bad. The fact that you can perplex technically yourself is really nice. But definitely I would say look at Jocasta as a training piece for fun games or even home games. That would be great. Alright, so let's sort of move on down. And I'm going to skip over a couple of figures, and I'm going to wind up on a figure that a lot of people have said is mediocre, and I have to agree partially, but I do think she has valid uses, and that is Miss Marvel. Now, Miss Marvel, her base values are mediocre. Straight mediocre. She doesn't have a lot of life, but she has 7 clicks. She doesn't have super high attacks, but she starts with an 11. She doesn't have crazy high damage, but she has 2 clicks of the 4 and a very consistent 3 for the rest of the time. She also has energy absorption, which is when Miss Marvel reduces damage, place an energy token on this card, give Miss Marvel a free action, and remove any number of energy tokens from this card. When you do, modify that many of her combat values by +1 until your next turn, if not already modified by this effect. So possibly, if you removed it, you can modify your range by +1, your movement by +1, your attack by +1, your defense by +1, and your damage by +1. See, the problem is, and again, this is how they worded it. It says, when you do, modify that many of her combat values by +1. So, I'm not quite sure if they would allow you to extend that on, like, to stack up, like, damage a couple of times or attack a couple of times. So, anyway, there is that. The main thing that I do like about Miss Marvel is one sniper rifle, and she starts to become really annoying, like high level annoying. And you can have all sorts of different lantern batteries with her. and that's pretty cool. You also have empowerment, and the second part of empowerment is pretty cool. It's Miss Marvel, a friendly character of a lower point value within 4 squares, without wit or perplex. Roll d6 on a result of 4 through 6. Ignore the effect. So you have a chance of having ghetto power cosmic too, and you can grant it to your friends. So that's nice as well. And that's a little bit of like secret hidden node tech there. All right, the rest of the stuff is really like on your radar, hardcore. I really like Graviton, but my main thing with Graviton is I really wish that he was 25 more points and 2 clicks longer and had like regen or something like that. And the main reason I wanted that is that I want to see another figure other than Superman with the Yellow Lantern battery and, play it up and see what you can do. Like, I just wanted to see something else. And right now, there's no other, 250-point character that really can stand toe-to-toe to Superman. And it's frustrating. It really is frustrating, but what can you do? What can you do? All right, that's it for today's show. Thank you for listening. I know that you might say, well, man, you sort of retreaded some old ground. And yeah, but I've also had some time to think on some things, definitely when it comes to Ultron. I also, like I sort of said before, got a chance to just reflect. A lot of times, knowingly or unknowingly, I display my neediness for social approval, through the show or just through interactions. And I've also noticed, to an extent, after listening to various different teachers and whatnot, is that it just seems to be a human condition that we strive to possess the attention and also the recognition of others. And various teachers give different reasons why that is, and trust me, that's like a whole different other show that I couldn't even do on this show about that. But with that being said, I do understand this drive in us for while we're here in this plane of existence to try to be something or to arrive to something, some level of heroicism, that we did conquer whatever our Hydra may be, that we slayed our Minotaur and exited the labyrinth. But we had to be prepared for the post slaying, and many times people aren't. They think, oh, I've do this and then I arrive. And there was a group that I used to listen to, and actually I was using the one of their songs for the intro for a while. The group's called The Breaks, and they did a song called Never Arrive. And they end up talking about the downfall of arrivals, that arrival puts you in a position of stagnation because there's nowhere else to go once you got there. And don't confuse that with discontentment either. But it does sort of show some insight to the human condition. All right, that's it. Thank you for listening. You can hit me up on Twitter at StartOverPod. It came from outer space and told me, man, if you had a chance to hang out with Power Girl or Huntress, which one would you hang out with? And I'm not going to lie, I would hang out with Power Girl. Like her way better. And not for the reason everyone thinks. You can hit me up and check out my random musings. And you can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. If you wish to opine, keep it pithy, keep it interesting, keep it Autobot, baby. Tell me about your Quinjet shenanigans. I won mine through I would say a misplay for our local area, because the rule that I never had applied to me, because I never played any Ultron drones, was that you could play Ultron, but you couldn't play his drone. Or you could play the drone, but you couldn't play the Ultron. And I was like, So I played Ultron Future in the 30-point Ultron Future drone. Oh gosh, those were some rough matches. The fact you underestimate how much running shot gives you an advantage until you finally like, well, I pulled absolute crap in this booster except for this one chase. Also, I would also like to say for the entirety of all of the Age of Ultron stuff, between 5 events, I have come out with 3 chases. So, yay. All right, and last but not least, you can check out the blog startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. If you wish to donate to the show, little donate buttons there. Anything that you donate turns back into making the show better, like super better. Also, TeePublic shirts. If you want to get a Starting Over Podcast shirt, they are there. I gotta rotate out the new shirt, the old shirt for the new shirt. So grab it while you still can. All right, that's it. Thank you for listening, and remember, we all have to start over sometime.